Welcome to Creator Shop Talk. Today I have the great, what I consider to be honor of talking with one of the most respected people in the sports card corner of YouTube, Mike Moynihan. Now, Mike is somebody who's been on YouTube for over a decade, and so he's been through the better part of the journey of the sports card space. And what I love about it is he's very well respected in large part because he has a great respect for fellow content creators and for the impact that that has on others. He's been able to see some of the quirks that other creators and the cliques that they've been in have had over the years, and he created something called the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame, which was intended specifically to highlight YouTube creators that have had an impact on others over the years. So basically, from the early years, there were a number of people who put together sports card channels and dedicated to that, day after day or week after week or month after month, and inspired others to go on to do the same thing. And so that's what he wanted to do with the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame. Something I was intending to talk to him about, and we only mentioned it one time. In fact, I think some of the things that I had initially assumed I was going to talk with him about, we never even got to, because we got into a very rambling, wonderful journey through talking about our corner of the YouTube space. And you've probably already seen that the timestamp on this is basically an hour, and that's pretty much what happened. Was we got just lost in the conversation, and it really was, for me, it was really great. It was a fun opportunity to hear something about the evolution of content from early on to later on, and to hear a very healthy perspective on the hobby around us. Now, I've talked a bit about the video, but let me mention a little bit about him so that you know going in. Mike has two channels. He has Baseball Collector, which is his core channel. He also has a channel called Bench Clear Media, which he has as more of an interactive space where he has a lot of people who are both guests with him, but also who kind of head shows on their own. So Bench Clear Media is his creation, but it's kind of got its own life. But he also was a co-founder of a channel called Chasing Cardboard, which is, it's not really a sports card channel, even though it's looking at sports cards. It's actually intended to be something to interact with or something to engage audiences who aren't into sports cards. And it's an interesting channel that is built more like a TV show than a regular YouTube channel. So it's fun to talk to him a little bit about Chasing Cardboard as well. So that's what he has done. He has his own hobby channel, he has his own hobby community channel, and he has his own he is a part of an entertainment channel as well. So he wears a couple of different hats. All of those hats do have a Texas Rangers tee on it, I will note that. But for me, I really did enjoy this interview, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it as well. So without further ado, here's my interview with Mike. All right. Well, thank you, Mike, for agreeing to talk about really kind of the history of sports card channels on YouTube and kind of the way that the space works and stuff like that. Because there are a couple of things I want to get into, but I want to start off by when you got started. What was the space like, and how did you kind of get into doing sports card content on YouTube?
So I would say, like most people, first of all, thanks for having me. Like most people, I was a consumer of content first.
Right.
I wish I could remember the first sports card video I ever watched. I truly can't remember. I can't even remember how I stumbled upon it, but it was probably 08, 09 when I started watching YouTube, and really maybe 2010, somewhere around there. And I remember being fascinated with seeing people show off their card rooms and how they display their stuff and how they have things set up. And I was mesmerized by that and dumbfounded like, how do these people get to do all, how do these people have this much space? And it was incredibly both inspirational to me and awe-inspiring to me. And but the space existed early. So the space has gone through a number of iterations, generations, if you want to call it that, of content creation. And so it used to be a relatively small group of people putting out content, showing their collections, and God, 75% of the videos were, hey, this guy over here sent me this card. Let me show it off. Some pickup videos, stuff like that. Was the basic content that was out there being created. Very few people showed their face. Very few people were known. Now, back then, you could actually, when YouTube first started, and for a long time, you could direct message a content creator. You could say, hey, what's going on, man? Or, hey, I like your stuff. And there were comments on videos, but you could also just direct message the person.
It's like what they do on Instagram.
Exactly. You could comment on a post on Instagram and or direct message the person. So it was a much more interactive community back then, and much smaller and much, I would say, closer knit. Everybody knew each other. It was this generation of creators who didn't care about subs. They didn't care. I mean, if you monetized your channel, you were the devil, and you didn't, you hated all your friends because you made them watch ads or whatever. And so there's been tremendous shift. Now, a lot of those people that created content back then no longer do it and quit shortly thereafter when I got in the game of watching content. They basically all just mass exodus left the platform completely and said, we're tired of what it's becoming, because they saw the next phase, which I was a part of that next phase. Call it Gen 2, Generation 2.0 in the card space on YouTube. And I did show my face, and I did talk about nobody talked about prices or what they paid, or that was all taboo. Like, nobody cared. That's not true. Probably people cared. Just it was like, well, you don't talk about that. You don't say what you paid for a card, or
you don't want to jar that door open, because otherwise you're going to get Jeff and company.
Yep. So few people, there were some box openings, there certainly wasn't breaking or any of that kind of stuff that exists now. And Generation 2.0 was, for me, for example, I watched a guy named Puff Bear 359 who probably hasn't made a video in a decade, but he had a card room video, multiple card room videos, different, he'd show his card room and then a year later show his card room again, what he's changed, what he's done different. And that inspired me to pick up the camera and do my card room version 1.0, which I think is the first video on my channel. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
All of ours.
I had a little flip camera. The brand was called Flip, and it was a tiny little camera that you had to plug into your computer to download the video and upload. I mean, it was an absolute just silliness, really. And I think that was, I can't remember when I can look real quick. It was a while ago, 2013, I think. Yeah. January 27th, 2013 was the first video I posted.
Wow.
So almost 12 years in about 2 weeks. So I did that. I did another couple of videos in January, February, and then it's kind of like, nobody's watching, why am I doing this? And so I took a hiatus till 2015 or so. And then I started doing a few more videos, and then 2016 did a few more, 2017, and really hit the ground going hard at it 2017 or so. And 1,200 videos later, just on Baseball Collector, not mentioning appearances on other shows and whatever else. I'd say I've done close to 2,000 videos in my YouTube career, I guess, between mine and other people's content.
Pretty impressive. Yeah, the first time I encountered sports card videos on YouTube, I've always been 90s, so 80s, 90s. I'm aware of 70s and 60s, but I got curious about vintage cards, and I figured I'd go onto YouTube and hear somebody give a basic history of mainly pre-war. And so I typed in history of sports cards, and there were, as I recall, two videos I watched. And the way it came across was some guy sitting in his parents' basement, just showing, and this is my T206, and this is my Cracker Jacket, and I'm going, it's show and tell, and it turned, both videos were like that, and it turned me off because I didn't understand what I was looking at, because what I was looking at was show and tell. Now, it was advertised as the history of cards, not my cards through card history, or something like that. And so to me, it looked like everything was just going to be kind of cheap, and I didn't understand the concept that YouTube provided us with the opportunity for grown kids to hang out at a card shop and talk about cards. And that's what those videos are. And so because I came in with a different mindset, I walked away going, well, that's a waste. And it's unfortunate that I didn't, figure it out. And then I never thought of checking out videos until I started my own channel, which I did for a completely different reason. And once I did that, then I was starting to acclimate. So, because if somebody doesn't know what they're looking at and they go on to like Mangini collection, it can be jarring unless you're going, I just want to hear someone sit and talk about cards. And if that's your mindset, that's a perfect channel. But if that's not what you're looking for, it's going to throw you absolutely off. So I was curious about how, kind of how things have evolved over time, because that's one portion. That's the hobbyist side of the sports card area. And then you have the investor guys, which is a whole nother space. For me, there are 5 different categories. There's the hobbyists, there's the investors, there's the box breaking, which also is box ripping, because box breaking itself is like an industry. And then there are people who just sit and open up packs, which was a big thing during COVID. 4 would be the hobby news and general conversations, which I think that kind of fits for bench clear media. For the most part, is talking about the nature of the hobby and how we view cards. And trying to remember the 5th one is. Oh, the 5th one is basically like mail day and PSA reveals, because there are some channels that are just PSA reveals.
Sure.
Which is pretty interesting. What I'm curious about is there's a lot of crossover between those, but what else is there outside of those main areas? Because what I see, other than chasing cardboard, which is it's its own category, kind of. Are there other things that I haven't been running into?
No, I think you can kind of fit every card video into one of those categories. I think something that's a relatively new part of the content world is the collaborations that you see. You see a lot more today. I like to think I had a part in that. I used to, on Bench Clear, or actually on Baseball Collector long ago, I started a thing called basically getting to know another hobby guy, and interviewing them and asking them more. I think it was called Beyond Cardboard. It was Beyond Cardboard. That's the name of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I scrolled past a few of those. Yeah.
And that was just interviews with guys trying to get to know their, because we're all more than just our cards, right? We're more than being a hobbyist or whatever we are.
Hopefully we're more.
Hopefully. And that's because what I think a lot of people don't realize is, I've tried to explain this on videos, people are seeing this slice of my life. There's all this other part of the circle that's the rest of my life, my family, my job, my career, all the things, right?
Yeah.
Every other aspect of my life. And if you watch somebody's YouTube channel, mine, for example, you might go, well, all Mike does is do hobby stuff. I put out a 12-minute video today that took me 15 minutes total to do out of my day. That's it. That's all the time I've spent on the hobby today, so it's not like all I do all day is think about what kind of cool video to create. And you'll see a bifurcation of creators. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time and effort making videos, cool thumbnails, creative titles, etc., all those things, and they put a lot of time into it. And you have guys like me, I literally just hit record, maybe do a couple of clips, put them together, voila, here you go. Here's the finished product. It's because I don't care. My audience, I'm not trying to get everyone in the world to watch my videos. I want the people that like this stuff to watch my stuff, and that like the stuff that I collect and can relate to that. I've always said I would rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, meaning I'd rather have 4 engaged, really viewers that care about the content than 100 random people just watching with no desire to, be a part of a community or be a part of, going on a journey with a collector,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the complete opposite side of that spectrum, because the reason I started my channel was because as a hobbyist, there were things that we needed in the hobby. And like I said, with the first search that I did to find a history of cards, my thought was, well, on YouTube, you should have these kinds of things. And so for me, I've created my channel specifically for a purpose. So where with your struggle early on about nobody's watching, so why am I doing this? That's just the purpose, you were creating it not for an audience as much as you were creating it for an opportunity for an audience. And if there's nobody there, then you're going, okay, well, the people I did this for aren't there. Whereas for me, I'm doing it for a whole purpose, which is to put together these very comprehensive breakdowns of sets so that you have all the information that, more information than you get in like the Beckett Annual. And so for me, it's a long-term project. My expectation is that 5, 10, 20 years down the road, these videos will still hold up. So I'm going through the struggle as a creator of putting all this work in. Nobody's watching it. But where for you, this is 12 minutes or 15 minutes of your day. For me, once I come home, it's everything till I go to sleep, because it's all the research, it's all the planning, it's the average production time for the video is over 10 hours. So it's a lot of work. And that's part of that's the reason I was curious about what else you've seen out there, because I do educational and historical videos, and I don't see anybody else doing that. I see it, a little bit here and there, like Junk Wax Hero does a couple of deep dives here and there, and there is a guy who started recently doing basic histories of baseball card companies, but for the most part, it's like a whole corner of our space that I feel kind of like I'm the only person there, and that I presume I must be missing something, since most people are missing my channel. I only get like 20 to 30 people actually watch my videos through. So,
well, there's been times in my evolution as a creator where all the videos that I spend a lot of time on, I get more views on a video I just spend 15 minutes on. I've just learned, and I'm like, look, I'm not going to put in all this effort unless it's a labor of love. There's some videos that I'm very proud of that maybe a Dick Perez deep dive into all the different Dick Perez stuff. And I'll put pictures and I'll add in graphics and all these different things, but I'm really doing that for me, because not any more people watch that than watch a quick mail day that's 8 minutes long, and so unless I want to do it for me, I don't do it, because I've just learned my time's more valuable than that, and I want to make content that I would enjoy. And there's a lot of people that are like me, and so it resonates with them, but I'm not going to kill myself trying to appeal to an audience that may or may not exist.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I think when anybody starts a channel, the expectation is you're going to blow up, and that, man, everybody's going to love this stuff. I love it. So there's got to be, thousands and tens of thousands of people that love what I love. That just only makes sense. And so there's this unrealistic expectation of channel growth that really discourages someone pretty quickly, or can discourage people quickly. If I could list for you, I have more channels that have come and gone than channels that exist today. And there's more
Oh, yeah.
channels today than ever before. So plenty of people come into the space, do it for a little while, and then exit the space for various reasons. Not just one, but the biggest one is probably discouragement of lack of catching on, so to speak, in the community. You have to love to do this. It has to be
Yeah.
just an outlet for you in the hobby, another way to share the hobby. Because I'm on Instagram, but I don't really do Instagram. I'm on some other platforms, but this is it for me. This is how I share my hobby, and I do it because I want to do it, because I love doing it. I never feel obligated to make a video. I never feel like, oh man, I got to keep on this schedule. And there's been times that I've done that, and I've looked back and went, why'd you do that? I have a podcast, Golden Age of Cardboard, that I haven't done in months, and I have intention of restarting it, but I'm not going to do it just to do it. I'm going to do it because there's a meaningful reason to do it. Meaning there's good content, because it's also very difficult. Sorry if I'm rambling on, but
No, go for it.
There's no video you can create that there isn't something else. No, you're not coming up with something new. You're not going to come up with something. Now you may put a different spin on it. You may add some, depth to it that wasn't there previously, but no one's coming up with an original idea here. I hate to tell people that, but it's just the truth.
Yeah.
So when somebody shows a card or whatever, I've seen it 100 times, and so I like hearing their excitement and all that. But if your videos are not either entertaining, educational, or inspirational, you're going to find your audience to be very narrow. And ideally, a video has all three of those aspects.
Yeah.
And I get comments all the time, man, I just love hearing the way you talk about cards, and I can hear your passion. I can hear, it's a card I may not even be interested in. There's plenty of people that I watch that I don't collect the way they collect, but I love how they talk about the way they collect. And that's entertaining to me, or whatever. But those three components are super critical to building a following, so to speak. You need to be one of those three, or ideally, again, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, what keeps me going is this is my, Chris Sewell refers to himself as collector, investor, dealer in that order. And for me, I always, when I first heard him say that, I thought it was kind of kitsch, until after a while I realized I used to be a collector, and now I'm nothing but an educator, because my channel has become my hobby. And every once in a while I get to actually get a card for my main collection, which is an interesting place to find yourself at, which is why I now get what Chris is saying. But because it is my path, it's my whole hobby, that allows me to not have to work. Like I did the Olympics cards during the Olympics. I've been waiting 4 years for it. I was all excited about it, and my channel suffered because the viewership went down because nobody cared to watch them. But that was my labor of love of finally, I got the Olympics cards done. I did 3 weeks of it, and now I move on to my normal content. But I've never looked back at it and had any regret, because that I'm excited that's a part of the portfolio. So I'm blessed by being able to be personally motivated by the project as opposed to the results. But it does get me thinking about other creators. I wish that we had some sort of a directory or some way to help people to know, not these are all the channels, because most of the channels don't need to be promoted, but to understand different corners of our space, unique like Reindeer Studios is one that that a lot of creators like to talk about. Oh man, he's great. He's not really sports cards, but he's part of our community and he's very distinct. And I wish there was some place where you could actually break down more of a broad understanding of our space. I'd love to see that.
That's a fascinating idea and concept. How would it get distributed? How would you know what I mean? Like, how would somebody put a video out that describes all this? Or I don't know.
Yeah, because every once in a while somebody will do a video of these are the channels I watch the most, and I see that every once in a while, and it's kind of fun to look through until I see that I'm not on the list, which is every case, of course. But when I see those, what I see is another hobbyist just kind of talking about their little corner of the hobby, which is a cool component to it because it's little groups of friends and it's little areas of influence that is it's why you started the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame, to provide that opportunity for everybody to do that as a group, and that does a really good job of it. But the idea I had was, at one point I thought about doing like a week by week review of different channels and actually putting together a whole collection, until I realized, well, no one's watching my channel, so no one's ever going to see it. So I didn't pursue it. But that's what got in my mind. It'd be really cool to have, whether it's that type of an idea or if it was a somebody doing a kind of a breakdown of, okay, this is the way the hobby is right now on YouTube. These are the different kinds of channels. This is one of the things I'm curious about is the evolution, where Jeff Wilson turned himself into a hobbyist, or his version of it, because the investment side was changing. And then Sports Card Dad has been doing some transitions, and there have been a lot of channels that have been evolving in interesting ways, trying to become a part of another space. But when the big channels do it, smaller channels that were doing that kind of get pushed to the side, and I'd love to see those guys be pointed out.
You brought up something that's, I think, an interesting part of the history of this. Is what caused that mass exodus that I discussed earlier was another realization that the space was growing, more people were creating channels, and that very naturally developed into a very cliquey environment. And it wasn't that there wasn't some cross-pollination with that, but simply put, guys kind of gravitated towards guys they liked, and it wasn't anymore this all for one and one for all for the community. Although it's not ever gone away. Like, there is opportunity for get-togethers at the National, and it's all kinds of channels, at that event. It's not just people that, I follow or vice versa.
Right.
It's people that show up that I've never watched a single one of their videos, but they're in the community. I just don't know them. The reality of that, in the sad truth, but you see it manifest itself today a lot, and it's totally okay and very normal, is that, look, I can't be friends with 500 people in the way that I'm friends with, say, 6 or 8 people that I've been friends with now for a decade. And we've developed friendships and relationships and all kinds of stuff that I don't want to replace. I don't have room. I don't have the bandwidth. I can't, again, I talk to hobby guys every day, literally every day, via text, phone, email, whatever, multiple times a day. I have no more, I can't have 500 people. I have other stuff I got to do in a day, and I can't just be on the phone all day with card guys. And so that's allowed for guys to find their own, and it tends to be guys that all kind of start their channels at the same time, which is an interesting dynamic that I've seen play out. These guys that kind of come in together as rookies, so to speak, and kind of grow up together in the space, tend to find each other and cross promote, and now so much, they're on each other's channels all the time and hanging out. And and doing all this stuff, which is fantastic, by the way. And that just has to keep going, where there's just more clicks created because there's no more room in mine, so to speak. And it doesn't mean that I'm not. I have more phone numbers of content creators than anyone else on the planet. I can almost guarantee it. But I can't talk to all these guys every day. And so the fact that they have their own groups doesn't make me jealous, because there was a lot of jealousy early on. Oh, you're talking to that guy. What about me? That became more, dude, I don't have enough time anyway. Go do, you have other buddies that you're really connecting with. Good for you, man. And so it's been almost promoted that way instead in the hobby community, versus you're ostracized if you're only hanging out with a few people. It's like, well, you should be friends with everybody. Like, you can't. It's just not possible. It's not realistic. And so there was a lot of pushback from that early group where they were all friends, because there was maybe 30 of them. That's it. And now there's 500 minimum, just hobby dudes, and not counting Jeff Wilson and these other people that literally started a channel to get views versus starting a channel because you love the hobby. There's completely different motivations. Jeff did it to build a business. By the way, Jeff Wilson, super great guy.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Absolutely
great guy. I've had many, many conversations with him off camera, and super good dude. So it's not that they're bad people. They just have different motivations, and that's great. There's place in the hobby for that. And they're getting a different viewer than I'm getting. The people that watch Sports Card Investor are most likely not watching my channel.
Yeah.
And here's another realization we all need to get our heads around. The hobby space, the true hobby space, is a very finite space. If I'm walking around a show, let's say the National, big show, right? 100,000 people in the room. There might be 200 of them that know who I am. That's a very small percentage of a very large hobby, right? So my maximum audience is very small. And of the 100,000 people that are there, maybe 10,000 of them care about what I like to some degree. Maybe not as at least to some level where the content might be interesting. But we got to remember, not everybody watches YouTube. Not everybody's on Instagram. There's cross-pollination across these platforms. But the reality is, I know people that are huge on Instagram that have never watched a sports card YouTube video and probably couldn't even tell you that there was such a thing, right? And so there's a finite audience. I think for a collector channel, if you got to 10,000 subs, you're killing it.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And like, that's huge. Now, the reality is, even I talk about engagement ratio to my, like, I kind of, to a few people. And, if you think about a channel that has, let's take Junk Wax Hero, Mike, good friend of mine, right? He's actually one that made it into the inner circle of mine. Even though he came on later in the scene, in the, development of this space, the timeline of this space. So Mike's got 10,000 plus subs, and he'll get 2,000. Let's say he has 10,000 subs exactly, and he gets 2,000 views per video. I would say he has an engagement ratio of 2,000 or 20%.
Yeah.
Right. And 20% of his potential audience, i.e. his subs, is watching any given video. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
But you have a channel like Chasing Cardboard, where you've got 50,000 subs, but each video gets 80 to 120,000 views. Where's that audience coming from? Where are people coming from? Is that people watching, is it only the 50,000 watching it twice or watching it in two sittings? There's no way to really dive. I just spend a lot of time diving into the analytics, because the YouTube platform just fascinates me on a whole lot of levels. And I spent a lot of time trying to find the magic bullet of how do you make your content appealing to more people? Because the reality is, I just want people to enjoy it. How do I get more people to enjoy it? Which is probably the same goal you have. It's I think at the core of any creator is, man, I hope people like this, and I hope people find this valuable and willing to spend their time watching it. Right. So So for a long time, what's the magic bullet? How do you get into the algorithm? How do you get viewership? How do you, because subs really don't matter. It really
No,
matters
they don't.
watching, like views or no, are people watching or not watching? You could have 100,000 subs, and if 50 people watch your videos, who gives a crud? Like
That's where I'm at.
And so the idea is, how do I get more? My goal is always, how do I get more engagement with the people that have at least hit the subscribe button, which, oh, by the way, if you look at your analytics or anyone else's, 50 to 60% of your view time will be from subscribers. The rest is from non-subscribers, which means they may come across a video, but they don't like it enough necessarily to subscribe and want to watch more intentionally. They might watch more unintentionally because it's recommended or whatever. But because once you start, I mean, like if I watch a cat video, man, for like the next 3 days, all in my feed is cat videos, you know, even though I just watched one for 3 minutes or something, you know, now YouTube thinks that I love cat videos and is feeding me more to watch. And so I know I'm covering a lot of different things and just really rambling a little bit, but there's a finite audience, accepting that, but then trying to say, okay, whatever my audience is, how do I get them to engage more and watch more often, which just creates the community strength that I think we all endeavor to, you know, promote.
Yeah, for me, I realized early on that my audience is not a general YouTube audience. It's the rest of the floor of the hobby or the card show. Because what I'm creating is not something for entertainment, and it's not for hanging out. It's something very specific. And so it's almost like I'm misusing YouTube. I'm using a feature that YouTube has that has not been capitalized on. So most people just don't know to come to my channel. And a lot of my views come from Google searches. A big percentage of them come from that. And whether that's the Sports Card Professor channel, which is, you know, deep diving into specific sets, or I also started a channel called the Sports Trading Card Hall of Fame, which is built around the history of the evolution of cards. So talking about the development of gold foil or the invention of draft pick rookies in 1989, stuff like that. And in fact, with that channel, I got so tired of having videos that I was watching them multiple times because I enjoyed watching them so much. There were deep dive mini histories that I realized I was writing a book. So I figured, all right, screw it, I'll write a book. And I wrote the book. Now I can't get that published, but it was interesting to see for me just how much I'm taking advantage of something that nobody knows is an advantage here. You know, people outside of YouTube don't realize this is here. People inside of YouTube are following the algorithm, which is all about what gets the most clicks, which is not a deep dive into 1995 SPX baseball. That's just not how it operates. So it's an interesting dynamic for me to be in. And I wish that there was a better way to promote that outside, but it's kind of like we've all cloistered ourselves into different types of social media. This is one form. Instagram has its own circles. You have chat rooms with its own circles, etc.
Right.
And we don't get enough crosstalk to really open up the some of the doors.
Well, it's interesting. You said something there that I find fascinating. 95 SPX baseball.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Well, that's right. That'd be 96. Sorry.
Well, no. I'm just saying any specific deep dive that narrows your audience significantly more. If you're talking about what PSA has done in the hobby, or, you know, that's going to appeal to a much broader audience versus a specific set on a specific sport that you're going to have a handful of people that really care about that set that are going to want to hear what you have to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
So and not that you shouldn't do that. If you love doing that, do that. I'm just saying that that's not going to be a mass appeal type of series.
Right. Obviously.
And,
there is a mass audience. It's just not, it's spread out too much.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so take for instance, I mentioned about having written the book. Right now, it's just a manuscript; it's just text. But every person I've talked to, they may have never, there's no semblance of interest in cards. They'll go, "Oh yeah, I remember I collected cards for 2 years. I'm really interested in that book." That idea of tapping into people who are interested in the subject, but they're not thinking about it, or they're not aware that it's here, is that's an aspect of the potential. How do I put this? The reason I do these deep dives is because the information is out there, but we don't have it collected in one space. So normally, if you want to learn about a card set, you're going to break out either a Beckett Annual or one of the classic books on vintage cards, and you're going to go through all the information they have. There is information that's missing. People
Sure.
know it, but it's not written down anywhere. So that's why I was putting together the videos I've put together. But it means that I get interesting topics. That the second baseball video I did is the Kmart cards of the 1980s. Kmart, Woolworths, Toys R Us, all of those. It's one of those things we all grew up with them. But has anybody sat down and said, "Oh, by the way, there's a history to them. This is all of the cards that are out there." And it's one of those things where when you hear it, you go, "Oh, that's an interesting idea," but nobody hears about it because of how how unique it is within our space. I guess that's what I want to say.
Yeah. I mean, when we launched Chasing Cardboard, we said our target audience is people who don't collect cards.
Yeah.
And that was our intent, and it's working that way. But like a lot of hobby people watch it too. But I watch the idea. Obviously, the show. It's the premise is American Pickers meet sports cards, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
so I watch American Pickers, and I could care less about motorcycles and bicycles and all the things that they buy. I don't collect that stuff. I have no interest in going and buying any of that stuff myself. I'm entertained by the show. It's well done.
Mm-hmm.
It tells a good story usually. And I do like learning some of the history of it, although none of it sticks because it's not an area of the world that I'm interested in. And yet I turn the show on every time and watch
Yeah.
it because I like the hosts. I like their interaction. There's components to it that I find entertaining, and I would choose to watch that over a lot of other junk on television. And so when we did Chasing Cardboard, the premise was, let's tell a really good story that happens to have sports cards in it some way, somehow. Yeah. And I get so many comments from friends of mine, my pastor at church, like, "Hey, I watched the show. I don't care anything about sports cards, but I loved it. I just loved the entertainment of it. I was entertained. I loved the stories, those kinds of things." So we get that kind of feedback all the time, even in comments on the videos, and sports card people like it too, to a degree. There's some hardcore people that think negative things about it, whatever, but you're going to get that no matter what. And so it's all about who's your target audience. And if your audience is someone Google searching 96 SPX baseball, how many people are doing that Google search every day or every month?
Not very many.
Not very many, most likely. But it's probably because they don't even know that 96 SPX baseball exists. Mm-hmm. And so what you have to do is get them to your channel to see something they are interested in. And then they're going to go, "Hey, what else does this guy have?" Although I'll tell you, even what you consider to be evergreen content, which is what I call the things like the history of sports cards. Like this will be a video that 20 years from now, people will want to watch because it'll be informative. Sadly, we are in such a mass information dissemination at a rapid rate world that we live in on every level.
Yep.
Nobody goes back and watches my videos from 6 months ago, 3 months ago, much less 10 years ago. You know what I mean? There is no such thing as evergreen content. There's evergreen topics. That doesn't mean that you're like, I could start over today and do basically just redo my whole video series that I've ever done. And there will be people like, I never knew you had that card. Like, dude, I showed it 10 years ago. Well, they don't know that. You know, my audience today is very different than it was. I have 9,300 subs, whatever it is. I promise you 60% of those are what I would call dead subs. They're people that subbed to me 6, 8, 10 years ago that are no longer watching YouTube videos about sports cards for, again, any given reason. And when you kind of leave the space because you find something else to do with your time, you don't unsubscribe from all the people you subscribe to. You just
don't watch.
It just sits idle, right?
Yeah.
And so I call those dead subs. They're subs that they subbed so long ago and don't watch it anymore and will never watch another video of mine. A lion's share of my videos are probably from people that have subbed to me in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lion's share of my views, I should say. And so I don't have any analytics to back that theory up because you can't really tell that. But I know, because if you go back and look at comment section from videos 5 years ago, you're going to see an entirely different set of names and channel names than you would see today. There would be very little overlap there in terms of people commenting. And so, well, why hasn't, Joe Schmo commented on a video? They just don't watch anymore. It's just that simple. And so my channel might look like it's successful within the space, but probably relatively speaking, it's kind of like your average channel. I mean, if I get 1,000 views, I consider that a successful video. And that's not really a lot in the grand scheme of YouTube,
Right. Yeah.
It's not a big
deal. Dream for me, but yeah.
And, there's different milestones that people, creators want to hit. And there's kind of levels of, okay. And all of us start with, man, if I got 100 people to subscribe, I'd feel like I'm hitting a home run. And then 500 people are subscribed to my channel. I can't believe it. There's 500 people that actually care what I'm putting out, and then 1,000 and so on and so forth. For me, getting to 10,000 now, I would feel like that would be a huge accomplishment if I got to 10,000 subs, darn well knowing that 60% of them aren't really subbed in terms of being engaged. They're just subbed from a lifetime ago, days have passed. So I don't know if I'm answering your questions or we're just talking. I don't know, but
yeah. I don't really care that much about the subs anymore because right now I'm at 1,721, and the average video in the first month gets about 70 views. So the numbers are so different that I already know that most of the people who sub have absolutely no interest in watching the videos. So I just look at if I ever get to the point where I get a whole 100 views in the first month on average, and that's the goal for me. I've been doing this 4.5 years and I haven't even gotten to that point. But again, that's a matter of early on. I was trying to figure out that magic, that silver bullet of figuring out how to get people to start watching the videos. And I realized I'd have to change what I was doing into something I didn't like. And so I figured, no, this is what I want to do and I'll live with it. And so I've always been comfortable with that. But also you get the dream of being that big successful channel with all the views that dies away after a while, where you just realize, oh, okay, it's not going to happen for me. And then you can become comfortable with what your channel is and how it grows, or you get motivated to turn it into something else. Either way you want to do it. And so I got that through pretty early.
There is some things anyone could do to get their channel out there more. Number one, first of all, before you contacted me, Darren, I had no idea your channel even existed.
I expected that. Yeah.
I'm being honest. And then I saw how many subs you had. I'm like, why does he have that many subs and that few views? What's going on? What's the disconnect there?
Yeah.
It made me curious. You're kind of explaining some of that now, but the best way to grow your channel is to be involved in other channels that you like. If you watch Sports Card Dad and Mangini, and pick 10 other quote unquote successful channels. I've never seen you comment on a single video of mine if you've watched any, or any of that stuff. So, because I read every comment that people put out there, and
I don't think I have on yours.
Okay. What you'll see with some channels, especially my morning routine, is I get up and I spend about 30 minutes replying to comments every day. And I do as many as I can and read through them and all of that. That's my morning routine over my coffee. And I'll put on somebody's video and just have it playing in the background of something I missed that was posted the night before from a channel that I follow. But what you'll see on, let's say, a channel that has 500 subs that might get 20 comments, they're going to probably respond, and they're going to probably go, who is this? I've never seen them comment before. They're going to click on your name, and it's going to take them to their page, and they might be, curious, what does this guy do? And does he have any videos? And I do that often when I see a name I don't recognize. 90% of the time, no content. They're not a fellow content. They're just a consumer of
They
content.
Just have an account. Yeah.
Right. Which is fine. But there's times when I'll go, hey, and then what that does is and the more engagement you have with other videos and other people, someone's going to go, dude, I really like what Darren's doing. I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to give him a shout out on one of my videos. And they might have 500 subs and you're at 100. You're not at 100.
Yeah.
You get my point. Or your views. Let's just say your views, right?
His views. Okay.
And they're going to bring some traffic to your channel, some degree. Because as soon as we're done with this and I see that it's posted, because I subscribed to you today.
Oh, thank you.
Once I see that it's posted, I'm going to post that on my story.
Oh, cool.
And people are going to see that and go, I've never heard of this guy. Well, Mike did an interview with him, so he can't be a complete loser. Let me go check that out, and they might be drawn to another. They'll scroll through some of your recent videos and go, hey, I like that. So the more engagement a creator can have to get themselves exposed to other people, along the full gamut, you got to really invest some time in really consuming some content and watching people. And ideally, if you like their stuff and, oh man, great card, or that's so cool, I love that set, or whatever you're going to put out there. You could even put it in the comment, by the way, I have my own channel. I'd appreciate it if you check it out. There's nothing wrong with that. And trying to, expose your channel to other people out there that might be interested. And then you'll find some people that go, man, Darren does some really cool stuff. I like it. I'm going to talk about that on a video, and you'll get 10 more subs and 20 more subs. Not just subs, but subs.
But people are interested.
That are interested and will engage in videos, and you'll start seeing your view counts start to go up. But that would be encouragement for anybody starting a channel is, man, you need to be out there promoting yourself to all these other people that are in the same space that you are. You might be doing it differently. And like you said, you have a whole different avenue that you're going down in the creation world. Very similar to Scott, Reindeer Studios, right? Super great dude, completely unique, right? He collects cards, but he's an art channel, really.
Yeah.
And it happens to be art that a lot of us like because we like baseball, and, there's some definite overlap there. So much that he's as much a part of the community as someone that only shows, vintage cards or whatever else, right? So he's a great example of a guy that doesn't show cards very often, but everybody in the community knows and loves and watches. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
So
yeah, for me, it's the time issue is the biggest thing, because like a lot of the information that I work to gather for these videos, I know is out there somewhere, but piecing through it is difficult because the channel itself, the research, the acquisition, the production, all of that stuff takes up all of my time. So I will try to get more involved in watching other channels.
Well, it can be, maybe it's okay. I'm going to take a break from, if you have this bankroll of videos in your channel already.
Nope.
Okay. How many videos have you done?
Well, the number of videos that are up are about 570.
That's a lot.
And oh yeah. Oh, I
So you
know it's a
have
lot.
a bankroll of videos that people could go watch right
I
now.
have a huge cache. I thought you meant if I had already put together some videos
No,
and
no,
could take a
no.
break.
I'm talking about right now. If I went to your channel
Okay, yeah.
videos, how many will I see? Right. And if it's
Yeah,
500 plus and your audience is where it is, you can take a break. I'm giving you permission to say, I'm going to take a break from creating content and I'm going to go out there. I've already done a lot of great content that nobody's watching. Let me get people interested in that first before I go back into the creation mode.
Mhm.
And there is some value once you gain an audience to consistency of content. And I do think thumbnails matter, although I don't care because I literally, it's me. I take a snap, I just let the YouTube thing pick one of the clips from the video and get my thumb. I really don't care.
Yeah.
And I have Canva and all the things that you can, and I've tried that before and I'm like, how much do I really want to spend another 15 minutes making a thumbnail?
Well, I created a really cool thumbnail look that I love, and
And
that's
if
one
it's
that I'm
easy for
excited to
you to
continue on.
edit, if you have a template basically that you just edit every time, that becomes easier, right? But
Well, it's not about ease; it's about the way that it looks. It's a very professional looking channel.
right.
The videos may not look professional, but the thumbnail sure do.
Well, if you spent a week or two spending your hobby time consuming content, going to channels that have an audience that might also like your stuff, right?
Yeah, I got to get that early YouTube spirit out of my head of, ew, I don't want to do that.
Then you're going to stay where you are. I mean, and
I know.
if you're okay with that, that's, you know what I'm saying? I'm not telling you anything that you have to do. It's if your goal is to build your audience, just because man, I feel like I've really put a lot of effort and time into these videos. I want people to enjoy them as much as I enjoyed making them. You got to tell people. I mean, people aren't just going to find it by happenstance.
Yeah, I know. I
Crowded.
understand. I don't mean to complain. I'm just talking
I'm
about
not
this is
hearing
the
it that way.
situation.
I'm not hearing you complain, truthfully.
Okay, good.
I'm just trying to hear what you
And
are saying and give you some thoughts on changing that potentially.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I really do.
Okay. All right. Ask me more questions.
Well, actually, we're already at about an hour. This has been pretty long.
Are we really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, well, I guess that for this conversation, we can bring it to a close here. So really do appreciate taking the time to talk about mainly how the hobby's kind of evolved over time, and that part's been a lot of fun. But hearing more about the nature of how the hobby works today has been really great. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. That was a quick hour. Truthfully, I love that. I didn't even look at the clock, and I'm just like, we're just talking. That's the other thing is be natural, be yourself. Just you're talking about cards. That's pretty fun, right?
Yeah.
So time can go pretty quickly when you're doing something you love doing, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you having me on, and I'll send some people to check this out.
Well, thank you.
Like your other stuff too.
So that was. I'm again really grateful that Mike dedicated the amount of time that he did to talking with me, and we were so engaged in this that we actually kept talking for another half hour afterwards. So it was really, I think it was pretty clear how much fun the two of us were having in the conversation. Really great. Thanks to him for doing this. Thanks for you for sticking around for this entire interview, because it is obviously quite long. Hopefully I'm going to be doing more, talking to more content creators from other spaces. Right now, this is my second interview, and I've only done interviews with fellow sports card content creators. So hopefully I'm going to get into some more stuff, some more different types of channels down the road. But I may also find myself talking to some more YouTube creators in our own space. But it is fun to talk about putting together these channels and the enjoyment of running channels, which is really what Mike and I were having fun talking about. So again, thank you very much for you, and thank you very much for Mike. And until the next interview.